It's been 3 years since Hurricane Dorian passed, but its impact is still felt today.
We see a whole lot of storms, but nothing was like Dorian.
Have you ever experienced a hurricane like this before?
No, never in my life.
Usually, does this area ever flood?
Never. First time. We never leave from here.
If it wasn't for the resilience of the people, a lot of people were already going out of their mind. And even now, when a little weather passing, you could see the anxiousness and excitement in the people and the scariness because of it. A lot of them are still traumatized.
It's a storm so powerful the entire world seemed to stand still to watch it saunter through the northern islands of the Bahamas.
If storm moving at a normal speed at that intensity is going to be devastating. To have a storm basically sit over the same general area is about the worst type of scenario you could imagine for those areas in terms of the impacts.
185-mile-per-hour winds. We could see gusts up to 220 miles per hour. We've never seen that before. So this is a historical event that is unfolding right before our eyes.
When I look at it, I always used to say we used to storms because, it's happening every so often. But Dorian wasn't expecting that.
Recorded as one of the most powerful storms of our generation, storm trackers who flew into the eye of the storm called it a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence.
Dorian, you've changed. This is such a different storm.
Dorian's eye has opened wide.
There's a Grand Bahamas-sized hole in this wall.
It's difficult to fly over these areas and look down at the devastation, to see the level of violence that these storms can exert on the surface of the earth and suffering that the people that are on the ground.
We'll be taking you inside the storm, through the stories of those who lived through it, and bringing you up close with what the past 3 years of rebuilding has been like for those left gathering the pieces post-Hurricane Dorian. I'm Jillian Gray, and this is Up Close, the Courage to Rebuild. When Hurricane Dorian made landfall in Abaco September 1st, 2019, it did so with a vengeance.
The intense pounding is prolonged by Dorian's slow speed of travel across the island.
Clocking a peak wind speed of 185 miles per hour, homes were battered with wind gusts that have only been recorded during tornadoes. That, combined with the snail's pace crawl in which it moved over Abaco, Dorian brought scenes that are etched in the minds of Abaconians forever.
It all began with warnings by way of the local media, television and radio, announcing weeks in advance that this cyclone, this tropical disturbance was brewing, and that we could have possibly be faced with a hurricane. I think when I learned about it initially, they were talking right around a Category 1, Category 2, maybe Category 3. And then as time went on, we went up to Category 4. Nothing prepared us.
Pastor Stephen Knowles shepherded the people of Strong Tower Community Church in Abaco for several years, but since Dorian, he's been stuck in Nassau. That hasn't hindered his mission to lead God's people, though. He's currently the pastor of Gospel Light Baptist Church in Nassau. He remembers the moment Dorian hit as though it were yesterday. It was a Sunday morning, and he would typically be preparing to deliver his sermon, but instead, he was wrestling 100-mile-per-hour wind speeds ripping through his home.
The first hurricane shelter of the window burst off. And I heard the sound, BAM! And I said to Judith and the girls, something is happening. I went out the corridor, looked to the window, and the window is wide open. So this is now time. We didn't have a chance to do anything. Breakfast, morning devotions, everything now is in fast motion. So I took them to the first plan. That's the first bedroom on the lower floor. When we got into that bedroom door, I locked the door. I came back out so that I could keep myself abreast as to what was happening, to see what else would take place as a result of the storm, and if I need to move them from point 1 to point 2, I know what to do. And then all of a sudden I heard, "Daddy!" And I said, "What happened?" And they said, "Come." And when I got to the door, pushed it open, the roof was just dancing where they were. So I needed plan number 2. I brought them out of the room, put them into the bathroom. It's a half bathroom underneath the staircase. And just when we were in the bathroom, I put them in there, closed the door. I came out to the kitchen corridor, so again I can keep my eyes. And by this time, I heard the sound of a train. And the whole entire roof, just as I heard the sound, at the same time, the entire roof of a 2-story house, not shingles and plywoods, the entire roof was lifted and taken. I'm standing in the kitchen. I'm holding on to the formica at the kitchen sink, and the tornado comes down into the house. The wind is spinning like a swirl of wind, picking up the dining room furniture, picking up different things within the house and into the sky. And I'm standing there, and the wind is spinning, pulling me into the wind. And I'm standing there holding on and praying, and within seconds, my whole life flashed before me. I started asking all the tough questions. Fast forward that track. It was a horrible experience.
Hurricane Dorian intensified at a rate never seen before. Around the world, people watched in frightful astonishment the unfolding of what would become the most memorable and deadly storm to hit the shores of the Bahamas in a century. While the view from above was astonishing, the view from below was horrifying.
When the first part is over, we realized that the eye was passing over. It was the time then for us to make our move. I came out of the room, checked the surroundings, and realized that the whole land mark was gone. We couldn't identify where we were. All the houses in the Munda-Peace was just ocean. Ocean was everywhere. By this time I can see the flapping of either person struggling. It looked like a tail of a shark caught up in the wave that was coming in. And I said, my God, this is something. But I knew that we only had a couple moments to get to another place. So I took my family, went through a window, the back window, up the hill, the backyard of a neighbor, and found more than 40 persons also on this hill trapped with nowhere else to run. I remember coming to the sidewalk, looking to the right towards the Central Abaco Primary School, which was a shelter, and saw droves of people running from there, hollering in the street, the shelter is destroyed, nowhere to go, we need help. Water is everywhere. I had only one choice, because I could see the government complex over in the distance. I had to jump off the hill into the water.
For 3 days, Pastor Stephen and hundreds of people took refuge in the government complex. When the all clear was given, he went out with teams, wading through water, climbing over debris, and walking for miles to rescue any survivors in need of help. And even when faced with an injury, he stayed in Abaco to volunteer to rebuild his community.
It was during that same period of trying to be a part of the rescue of persons who needed help that I got injured. I remember having my left feet, standing on the edge of the backhoe, trying to move some debris. We thought we had come across a dead body because of the stench that was there, and trying to prevent doing any further damage to the body. I climbed on the backhoe with my right feet leaving my left feet dingling to the side, and didn't realize that until I felt the fire, the burning coming up my left side, that my feet was being crushed between the backhoe and the plywood. So there were only few people who were on the ground at that moment, and I felt overwhelmed. I broke down in the streets, started crying. A doctor who had just flown into the island found me in the street crying, put me on a boat, sent me into Nassau. I got on the boat, got into the ocean, the boat broke down. A journey that should have only taken 10 hours, took almost 23 hours. Got into Nassau at 3 a.m. in the morning, had to sleep under the bridge, worked my way to find my family, then went into quarantine, then went to see a doctor, then to find out how my feet was doing, only to find out that I needed multiple surgeries. And so I had to take more than 5 surgeries, more than 285 rounds of physiotherapy to save my left feet. Am I a hero? I don't know. I know one thing, that I believe that what I did then in 2019 is what I'll do any day
When the wind died down in Abaco, it started to pick up in Grand Bahama. And as the storm meandered its way to Grand Bahama, the residents braced for impact.
All I hoping that I never see that again in my whole entire life. You know, God knows I don't go through that again. Because it was so hard. You could imagine it take you so many years to establish yourself, and then just in a couple of seconds it's gone. You know, you had normalcy, and after that you don't have anything. Because after the storm, we lived in a tent like for 6 weeks.
So we basically just bunkered down and got ready for the ride. That night, about 3 a.m., I remember being awoken with a pain in my stomach. I don't really know, what caused it, but at the same time, my husband got a cell phone call from my stepdad, who was already panicked. He was like, the water is here, like, whatever you're gonna do, you need to do it quickly. And we were just like, the water is here? Like, what do you mean? And so upon looking on the outside, it was a view that I don't think I will ever forget for the rest of my life. The ocean had literally been on land. It's one thing to see water on the outside, still water, but no, this was the raging Atlantic Ocean. White cap waves splashing over my wall, straight up to the house, and then soon the house just started to fill up with this water.
Keldra and her family were stuck in the roof for 36 hours. With her mobile network still connected, she got regular updates on the storm's passing and was able to connect with other family. It was a bright light in what was the longest, darkest night of her life.
So just staying connected was definitely a peace of mind for me. I couldn't imagine being there and like having no information at all, because the storm was actually stationary for 12 hours. Like, it did not move 1 inch in 12 hours.
Preston Cooper rode out the storm in his home with his wife and grandson. When the waters started to rise, they sought shelter in their roof.
I stayed in my house. I had 8 feet 2 inches of water in my house.
Wow, what was that like?
Terrible. My wife and my grandson and I was up in the roof sailing.
How long were you in the roof?
We stayed up there for about a day and a half, I think it was.
Dozens of residents had to either flee from their home or seek shelter in their roof.
I think the most difficult part about being in the roof was not being able to sleep or to sit comfortably. But when fatigue takes over, like, it is very difficult to stay awake. And at one point, my husband, he just was like, I need to take 5, like, I just can't, And so he positioned his body on the very thin beam. He positioned his spine, and he just had to take a little rest. And as he rested, I just watched and watched, because if he had fallen, then I don't know, The ocean current was coming in so fast. I really would like for people to understand how raging the ocean was beneath us. Like, it was no calm day on the beach. It was like the rough seas. So we were in the roof, and I heard this gushing, like, ocean sound. And my husband and my cousin, they went down to see exactly where the sound was coming from. The door was breached, and the ocean was just like flowing through. It was loud. It was very loud. And while they were down, I moved closer to the manhole just to be able to communicate with them a little bit, to find out if they're okay. And so when I got the message that, okay, we're good, the door is open, but we opened the windows and, to let the ocean flow through, I said, okay, I can now go back to a safer area where I was in the roof. And as I got up to move, I don't know, my foot just kind of slipped off of the wooden beam onto the sheetrock, and I fell through. I fell through the sheetrock, but fortunately, my fall was broken by the door that was hanging just under my feet. And I had my baby in my hand, and I'm shouting, I'm like, come, help, help,
Evelyn and her husband Joseph evacuated from High Rock to Freeport before the storm hit, and once it had passed, she longed to get back to East Grand Bahama.
You know, like when something far away, you longing to get there, but it's like, it ain't happening. It takes us probably a whole week before we could get back home. Like when I first come in the community, it was like so many homes. What I know was there, it was like just the foundation. So I was like thinking, I said, Lord, I don't know what I'm gonna meet when I reach home. And when we enter the community, it's like it was so much debris. Like we did have to climb over, trying to, the area where we know our house was. We did have to climb over that. And then when we get to the top of the debris, when I saw the roof was gone, but at least the structure was still there, that was a sign of relief.
In my house, my wife and my grandson and I was up in the roof ceiling, they call it. We spent a day and a half up there, I think. The water was 8 feet 2 inches of water, looking down the ocean like.
Have you ever experienced a hurricane like this before?
No, never in my life.
Usually does this area ever flood?
Never. First time. We never leave from here.
Wow. So that's why you decided to ride the storm out?
Right.
Wow.
Never leave.
And this is what all of the homes for this corner would have looked like?
It must look like, that's it. That's right.
Plenty times people will ask me, say, what it was like when you come home. Did you went in depression or what it is? I tell them I even didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. It was so much work going on. I just hit the road and I started working because the whole inside of the house was cut out. The window stem was gone. It was like inside the house it looked like a war zone, So it is what it is. So I just started throwing out rock sheet, throwing out old things, and stuff like that, trying to just get normalcy back.
What was it like to come back and see all of this?
It was kind of sad, but again, you got to face it. Trust the master. Put everything in his hand. And he take care of everything for us.
When the wind died down, it was time to make the long trek back to East Grand Bahama.
After the storm, all this was impossible. This was long, most of it was water. I mean, talking about 4.5, 5 foot of water, poles and stuff everywhere. It's literally impossible.
Joseph and his wife Evelyn walked more than 10 miles through debris and rubble to get to their home.
It was crazy, man. But desperate people do desperate things. You want to know if you still have a home or whatnot. So we had to do what we had to do, moving the rocks, cutting the roads, trying to get across.
The couple have long run a fishing lodge and restaurant. Though both their home and business was severely damaged, they count themselves as the lucky ones.
This area was like 65% or 70% damaged. But at least the structure was still there. So I consider myself blessed because so many people lose their business and their home.
Yeah, this is almost back to pre-Dorian after months and months of years of working. Still it's not 100% yet, but Eastern people they are resilient, they're strong people and they are determined people. That's why you see now, we almost like 80% back. So that took a lot of work and a lot of desperation through the people and being determined to get back in the houses.
It took about 6 months of constant work to get the house livable again. Then the focus was on their business. 3 years later, that business is just starting to rebound.
What we did after we get like a little bit of normalcy in the house, we stopped focusing on the house. So we said it's an income. So we tried to get that restaurant up and running, where you could have some kind of incomes coming in. And then we gone back and we completed the house.
And since you had the restaurant up and running, how have things been?
We had like a double whammy. Because when I say double whammy, because you had the effect of the storm, and right after the storm, then COVID came. So you got to shut down everything. We had so much to shut down and stuff like that. It was like, and then where it was new, you were scared, you know. You just shut down everything, just hoping for the best.
He may not count himself as one, but Bjorn Cooper is a hero.
So when I got the call, I didn't take it serious because I said they live in the inland. What kind of rescuing they need? But when they called back the second time, I could hear the fear in their voice. So that's when I hopped in the bucket truck, me and two of my cousins. We went down on Call Road, we was on Call Road. Then we make that left to go to Hudson. The water hit the bucket truck on top of the hood. That's when I know it was serious.
Despite torrential rain, 5-foot storm surge, and gale force winds, Bjorn said they went from house to house answering the call of anyone who needed rescuing.
When we was getting through, I call him. I say, I can park out in the corner because there's plenty of water for the bucket truck. He said, BJ, I can need you to come through because we can't get out the door because the water is pushing the door. So we park a little ways out the water, hop out, walk through. When we walk through, while he was pulling on the inside, he was pushing on the outside to get the door open. So when we get the door open, it was him, his grandson, his wife, his daughter, his 2 daughters, and the Douglas said, he live in Hudson too. So when we was walking out, all of us was walking out together and we go on the bucket truck. That was the first day. Then day 2, that's when we link up with the Defense Force officers, immigration. They was calling us, tell us, like, go this place, go that place, go to the next place. It was Officer Waldron, Cooper, and Murphy. Murphy was the Defense Force officer. He was getting enormous calls that day.
Bjorn saved dozens of people trapped in their homes or exposed to the elements after fleeing for their lives.
It was this lady, when they buck us on the road, they was trying to get through the water, but they couldn't make it. So they flag us down in the bucket truck. Tell them so they get some family members in the back there. So we reached in the back there. The water, like I said, it reached the one on top of the hood too. So he's driving through, getting through. This truck almost stalled out, but you know, you just have to keep going because if it's stalled out in the water, that's it. Yeah, so when we reached in the back there, it was, but I didn't even know where all the people come from. When they hop on the back of the truck, they's hanging off the bucket truck and all. There was 57 people in the back there. And one truck. And then there was 2 babies, the babies right inside and the rest right on the back. And one of the ladies, she's having something to do with the sugar. So just when we reached by Christ the King, they take out the truck, put on a stretcher and was dealing with it already done. All of us like had to basically be holding each other to make it through the water. And then when we went in the back by pine forest, when we was in the back there, we had to walk like about a half a mile in the bush to get rid of the lady who was keeping, because you know that's themselves with the house system built off the road. Wind blowing, rain, water stem raging, but you had to do what you had to do. And thanks to the Defense Force officers too, like they really was trained and dealing with, so they was just moving us and showing us what to be doing so we didn't want to get hurt in the process.
After rescuing them, Bjorn provided a safe haven. 57 people were welcomed into his home to ride out the storm, sharing everything they had.
And before the storm, Mommy was like, the storm coming. So you're gonna have to open your doors to anyone. When I left out those to rescue the first time, it was only my mommy, my daddy, 3 of my cousins was there. When I come back, there's 57 people in the house.
And how big is those?
She good size. She's a 4-bedroom, front room, kitchen, then.
Good size,
You know 57 people wait.
While many are bouncing back in East Grand Bahama, there's one town that's frozen in time. This is Bevenstown. Before Dorian, it was a quaint, family-oriented town nestled at about the midpoint of East Grand Bahama. Everything has been left virtually untouched after the monstrous storm's passing.
Nobody lived like that no more right now. Everybody left after so much damage. Yeah. There was a couple of folks who started to do a little something, but as of now, nobody lives there anymore. The community was hit so hard, man,
When the winds died down and waters receded, there was still a dark cloud over the lives of those who had survived.
This storm has taken away basically everything that I ever hold dear to me. Dorian ruined my life.
Those who lost loved ones battled with trying to find remains, and where there were none, they were told they had to wait 7 years before they could receive a death certificate. According to the Evidence Act, scores of people perished during Dorian, never to be heard from again. One of the more well-recognized stories of heartbreak was that of Baronet Thompson.
I lost all 3 of my children and my husband. And I was missing for about 3 days.
This 20-minute documentary detailing her struggle for closure after losing her husband and 3 children became a rallying cry for all those battling the same situation. With no remains, getting a death certificate and closure was a daily, agonizing open wound.
My husband room. This is my room right now. Oh my God. This is Mateo's shoes. This is Ramiel's pants. This is Title's pants.
Today, Baronet is finally seeing the sun after that dark cloud. An amendment to the Evidence Act is causing her to finally get closure for her family.
2 years have passed, and this is specific for me. This is a Dorian issue now for me, and the 2 years has passed, so this takes effect today. So persons, once the law is passed,
I can move on in terms of not having to fight people. I could be within myself, and I could take care of me now in terms of mentally and understanding that it's soon going to be time for you to grieve. Like, I haven't grieved properly yet for my family. I haven't done that yet because I was so busy being in your face and everybody else's face and trying to keep my family alive. So it's now more of me taking care of me. And I know for others, it's like taking care of them and understanding, listen, your loved one is gone. It's now time to take care of you. The fight, one part of the fight is over with. You have the government support. You have a lot of people that's supporting you. So it's time to take whatever you've gotten from them and move forward in the best way you know how to.
The Evidence Amendment Number 2 Bill 2022 inserts a new section, 93A, into Chapter 65 of the Evidence Act. The new section reads, presumption of death where person disappeared in circumstances of peril, where any person is proved to have disappeared in circumstances of peril and the person has not been heard from for 2 years or more since the disappearance, and after proper inquiry made, or on behalf of those who naturally would have heard from them, or for the person if they had been alive, the court shall presume, until the contrary is shown, that the person is dead, and the court in such a case may presume the time of death of that person to be the date of peril. For the purpose of this section, circumstances of peril includes a natural disaster, such as a hurricane.
I've never seen something like this happen. I've never seen it, not in the Bahamas. I've never seen it. If it has, I'm not aware of it. But the confidence level that I have in this administration, I mean, it's on an all-time high, and I want you guys to keep it there. I want you to keep it there because I'm expecting greater things than what you've done yesterday. If you could actually pass a law like this, which persons were saying, I went to lawyers upon lawyers, and they're saying that's law. That's law. There's nothing that I can do. That is law. It's 7 years. To witness 7 years turning into 2 years? Where's that? I mean, this law here has been amended. I mean, there's a lot of things that you guys can do. A lot of things. And it just put me to question, what else can you do?
For 3 years, Indra Ford, a mother and grandmother who lost her daughter during Dorian, had to battle the loss of her daughter, coupled with the uncertainty of caring for her grandson. She too now feels that ray of sunshine after a long, dark road.
It's a relief, like I said, it's to be able to conduct business on his behalf, because there are things that he needs, and I'm not able to do anything because I don't have a death certificate. And so, I am happy that the government made the move forward too, and not only for me, but for other family members who lost their families, families that lost their family members in Dorian. And also we think about people who went fishing or who went on a plane and they're missing. It was always 7 years. So now it's not only about us, but it's about those families who husbands or brothers or cousins went out to sea and an accident happened and they never came back and there's no closure. The sea can't tell you what happened. These people haven't come back, so you don't have to wait that long for closure. So it's not really, it's not, thank God that it's not only us, but it will be helpful to other people as well.
Has that been a step in your process for closure?
Yeah, like I say, to be able to conduct business on his behalf. My hands were tied for the past almost 3 years. I wasn't able to do anything. And so there are things that he, like I said, there are things that he needs, and I'll be able to, be able to get out there and get those things done for him. Just to give him, he needs to be a normal child. Yes, something bad happened, but I want to make sure that he has as normal a life as possible. Having a passport, having, get his national insurance benefits, go to school, be normal, play, have fun, just to give him what I know that she would have.
Indra rode out the storm at her home with her older daughter, Shadonica. She lives in an area that has always been free from flood. So when the water started to rise and rage, they were baffled and ended up running from their home, all the while thinking of her second daughter, Giovanna J., miles away, also battling rising waves.
The water was about 4 feet and raging. And later that afternoon, we were dealing about maybe 5 feet of water. And that went on until the 3rd of September, the Tuesday of the storm. The storm came Monday. That Tuesday morning when we got up, it raged all night. This is a storm that sat over us for a while. And when I got up, we got down. We were able to come back inside. The water had receded very quickly. The water had receded, and we came in and tried to see what we could do on the inside here as far as getting the residue out. And not knowing that the worst was upon me, even though the storm had already left. But here it is that my daughter was swept away by floodwaters. It was a long journey, We rode that day, the 4th of September, after I waited because we were trying to see who would check in. And I didn't hear anything from her. And so we went to all the different shelters to see if, she was rescued. Because, there were a lot of people that were saying that, people were rescued from different areas. So I hoped against all hope that she would have been one of those people that was rescued. But day by day, hour by hour, my hope faded, and just never found her.
Though the problem of not having a death certificate is resolved, it's still a bittersweet moment.
It's not only me, you know, there's so many other families out there that is faced with the same thing. So I just live daily with the knowing that she's in a better place. There's no adjustment. It's not like like I lost my mom earlier this year and I buried her. So I know where she is. I know it's over.
But it's still...
You're in the air. It's a suspense.
Ford is simply preparing herself to have a tough conversation with her grandson once he can fully comprehend the situation. The 4-year-old was only 21 months old when his mother was swept away. Indra said she recently had a memorial for her daughter. That, coupled with the constant support of her family, is how she coped through the last 3 years.
We would talk about her, but not often. It's been a traumatic experience for him. He knows his mommy. I don't think he's really sure of what really took place. And so I want to leave it for him to be able to come to me one day and say, Grammy, what happened, to my mom? And then also with my mom, his caretaker, she passed away just 2 weeks of being ill. He knows, because of course now he's older, so he knows. He says, well, Nene was sick and Nene's sleeping, so he sort of has an idea. So we sort of, with that situation, we allowed him to see the process. But with her going missing, he was not able to see the process. It's something that happened. He went away, and when he came back, there was no mommy. And so with time, we'll address it.
How are you preparing for that conversation?
I'm actually not prepared, but I know it's gonna come, and I'm just to the point where I'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. And my mom was there to help us. Today's gonna be good. Just pray. She shared scriptures. She prayed with us, and so it sort of kept us going. So family has basically helped us, and then I have an aunt, Geneva, my aunt Geneva. She's always been there, a tower of strength. My cousins. So family has basically helped us to sort of keep stable.
After the passing of her daughter, Indra pulled away to cope before coming home to rebuild.
Patience. A lot of patience. When it first happened, the death of my daughter took a toll on me, and so I went away for a while. I came back maybe about 5 or 6 weeks later, and when I came back, everything was still the same, nothing. So we rented. I got an apartment because I had a baby now, so I had to get an apartment for my mom and the children. And there were days when I thought that I actually wasn't gonna get back here, but I had some friends that pulled with me, and step by step, day by day, after we were out for like a year and a half, but we were able to get it together. There's still things to be done, but we're getting there.
For those further east in the town of Pelican Point, the rebuilding process has been steady. That's in part due to Mr. Lange.
My name is Reverend Lange. I was born right here in Pelican Point. What I did as one of the leader in the area is shortly after the hurricane, I called the community of Pelican Point together. I had a meeting with the community of Pelican Point together. There were no place to have no meeting in here in Pelican Point. So we had a meeting in Freeport, and we formed a committee to assist the people in this area. They wanted me to chair the committee, but I said no, give it some of the younger ones. So we divided into groups. There were people who assist with the debris moving, people who sit with how we going to build and so forth. But there was nobody with no financial background right then to help each other. They'll help each other. So it was not an easy task.
This banding together produced the beautiful, steady reconstruction you see here. While it may look nice now, residents say when they came home, they could barely recognize the place.
When I came back and by the college of the Bahamas, it was full of water, so I turned back. And I come back the next day, and I catch a ride, and I park my car by starter, and we start to walk. And somebody give us a ride because you have to cut through the bush to come, So but when I faced the freetown, I was dropping tears because the place, I was so shocked. The whole place was just like totally destroyed. They bring me here. I said, where's my house? Where's the shop? Gone. Everything was in the pond.
It was flat.
Flat. Flat. This is a new house and this is a new shop. Everything just was flat, but we get a little assistance from the government, a little assistance from the overseas, a little assistance from the Rotary, so.
So putting all of those together, you were able to.
Yeah, but this way is now a little more assistance will come in shortly, so I think I should be back in here before Christmas.
Because when I came back from Dorian, my Pelican Point was completely wrecked. From the first house to the beginning to the last house to the end, it was completely wrecked. There were houses I came in the community. The only thing I seen left in the house was a toilet bowl set on the slab. Whole house was gone. The church, our church, was completely destroyed. There were 4 walls, and when we get back, there were 2 walls left. All the roof. We had a community center or the church hall. That was completely destroyed by hurricane. And there were many homes. There were approximately 8 homes in Pelican Point was completely gone. When I came back, my house, I met a small section of the roof, just big enough that I can go under for the sun, but the whole house was gone. So I had no other choice to do but for myself was to push down my house and rebuild it.
Burcell Cooper's father left him that home in Pelican Point. It's seen many storms and weathered them all until Dorian.
My dad left a house. The house was pretty old, but that house being through hurricane, all the hurricane. But this one, that's totally destroyed.
From living in a tent to having nowhere to live at all, the rebuilding process was far from easy for Burcell, but he said he was determined to stick it through.
I never left. I spent maybe about 2 weeks in Freeport, and I live in a tent. I catch plenty hell. The raccoon, the mosquito, the sandfly, but then I didn't have to pay no rent. So I just take it out, And now things looking pretty good right now. It's where I am right now. Trying to move because my mother, she going for 80, she 80 something. And she want to come home, but I just, step by step.
So she would live with you?
Yeah. So I tell her she should be here before Christmas.
Is she glad to hear?
Yeah, we shall be back home.
As a former chief counselor for the area, Reverend Lange did not give a second thought to rebuilding in Pelican Point. In fact, he was the first to return.
I'm a builder. I did all just about the work for myself. And I haven't quite finished it yet. But 10 months later, I moved into it. There was approximately 50 to 60 houses was completely washed off the map from East Grand, Bahamas. Washed off the map. And I was the first person to move into my house after the hurricane. So I was blessed.
No discussion around rebuilding can be done without thanking and honoring NGOs who sacrifice so much to help residents restart their lives.
Thanks for everything they did, helping out wise, because we really did need the help. And the extra push, because it was rough.
To the NGOs, thank you. Thank you. And then in the aftermath as well, all of the food charities, I don't know what we would have done, because at that point you're really just at the mercy of those people who are willing to help.
Help came from far and near. Getting that help to people was a task John Pinder championed in Abaco and one Ginger Moxie took to heart in Grand Bahama.
We created a lot of them right off the bat and expedited the process. And different groups of foreign friends, as I call them, second homeowners and people that just have a special interest in Abaco, they came through and helped and set those up. And we created quite a few of them through all of the keys and divvied up the work between them. So in Hopetown particularly, we had one of our nonprofits that took care of the school rebuild and the public docks rebuild, and then another nonprofit helps with the clinic and the library and the public bathrooms, and another one helped with the logistics of, help BPL with the logistics of getting their poles over, and then help the police with accommodations and so on and so forth, and try to get everything moving in that fashion. So we really used the nonprofits as our financial resources to move. And there was a group of us on each of the islands that really pushed forward on that. Hopetown, the members from Hopetown Fire and Rescue were instrumental in that way, where they coordinated large sums of money in different projects. And we dug ourselves out and rebuilt as quickly as possible. If you go to Hopetown right now, or Manawar, it doesn't even look like Dorian hit. You can see some scars here and there, like we're still missing the iconic post office building in Hopetown Harbor Lodge, but the overall aesthetics of it are back.
The first order of business was helping people, because everyone was in need, everyone. And so, because I have a lot of international connections, I'm the Caribbean representative for an organization called Sister Cities International. I was able to tap into those relationships in order to get some supplies in to provide immediate relief. And so we were really one of the first on the grounds, bringing relief, taking stuff to the people instead of waiting, for them to come to some area to collect stuff when vehicles were gone. People lost everything, and so people couldn't mobilize in order to get the things they needed. So that was really the first order of business, really getting supplies to those in need.
That passion to help people on their respective islands was part of the reason they decided to run to represent those islands. Now they continue to work with NGOs for the betterment of their communities.
Prior to being in office, helping people in need is what I did. So I ran a nonprofit organization called 700 Partners, and that's what it was for, to help people in need. So we did many programs and initiatives and community-related projects that assisted people in need. Really, I would say that the introduction of the new unit in the ministry for Grandmama called CoLab, Partnerships for Development, is like 700 Partners on steroids, because it really is an initiative aimed at bringing people together to make a difference. If we do not come together, nothing will happen. And so it is a unit that involves NGOs, businesses, other government agencies, and the community at large, to assist with the basic needs of residents. And that basic need really came about because of Dorian. Because what Dorian did, it took us to ground zero. It's as though we are starting all over again. And so many people are in need. They were in need when we won in September 16th last year, and many are still in need. And so for me, that is what's most important. How do we help those who need it the most?
So I always take things from a multi-pronged approach, whereas yes, I am petitioning the different ministers and ministries to get certain things done, but I'm also working with on-ground nonprofits and creating a master foundation. It will be called the Great Abaco Foundation, to assist other communities that aren't as blessed as we are with the foreign financial resources. So at the end of this, by the end of next year, we'll have that fully set up, and that'll be a provision to help whoever is left in rebuilding, scholarship funds, and put a fund together for hurricane preparedness for future storms, because we live in an archipelago, an island nation, and this will occur again. We're going to make sure that we're very prepared and make sure our people have the resources to bounce back immediately.
Dorian is not a storm easily forgotten. Even now, John Pinder says the images are etched in his mind.
The winds ripped apart my next door neighbor's house, and that hit my house. Collateral damage tore the 2/3 of my roof off, and I had to take my 6-month-old baby and my 6-year-old daughter and my wife and put them in the bunk bed in the back bedroom. And there was a door I was supposed to put on I was changing out for the bathroom. God willing, that was still sitting there, because I used that door as a cover for us to last through the storm until the eye reached. When the eye reached, we were able to crawl ourselves out of the debris and walk down the road to a building that was made out of pure cement, and the bottom half of that was still secure. Having to make a decision to leave my family there to go check on my stepfather, who had sliced open his leg and was bleeding out, and secure animals and help others that were trying to get to shelter. After the second half of the storm later that night, crawled through back to the place where I had left them to make sure that everybody was still alive and standing. And thankfully, we were lucky enough we did not lose life, which was good. There was a lot of other islands that weren't as fortunate.
Just like many others, his family is still reeling from the mental effects of Hurricane Dorian.
I've gone through quite a few storms. I'm pretty calm in situations like that. I've been doing first responder work my whole life, and emergency response and so on and so forth. The one moment that really hit me is when my 6-year-old daughter, who was holding me on my back, because that's how we were surviving the winds, says, "Daddy, are we gonna die?" And I said, "Baby, no, just hold me." And that was the point where I realized this is serious, and there may be a time where we'll have to go and hide somewhere else or move again. But it was a seriously tragic situation, and you don't really understand the tragedy unless you were there. Even a small winter storm that we normally get with gusts up to 50, that is traumatic for her. My 6-month-old son, who is now 3, he was a little young, so it didn't affect him as bad, but definitely affected my daughter tremendously.
Do you have any advice for parents who may have children going through what your daughter's going through, just on how to cope and stuff like that?
You know, you have to work through it. Be comforting, explain to them the different circumstances. If it rains too hard and there's lightning, you explain that's a rainstorm and it's normal and so on and so forth. But being comforting, being there, and being their strength is key.
Going through a storm like Dorian teaches us so much, and with those lessons, we're able to plan and prepare.
We never know what's really going to hit us next, but this has given me a certain set of skills to prepare us for the next storm coming. Like I said, we're an island nation, and it's only a matter of time before we get hit with another one. Hopefully it's something small and not as catastrophic, but it will happen again, and I plan on using my skills and my position to make sure that Abaco in a whole is properly prepared for the next one. Hurricane shelters are very important, and to have them designated in areas that are high up in elevation. When Dorian came through, we had a 12-foot rise in sea, and then the waves on top of that. So there was anywhere between 16 and 20 feet of water rushing through any of the islands. Having the right geographic locations for our hurricane shelters, having the right setup and preparedness for helping the elderly and the children, and having a plan put together for the citizens, whether it be in Abaco or down south or Grand Bahama or where it may be. We need to have a full plan that's easy enough for a child to understand. On top of that, it's infrastructure. We got to make sure that our infrastructure is resilient. When putting BPL wires from island to island, can't just throw them up on the rocks. We have to have them properly piped, properly secured, transfer stations properly secured, and so on and so forth. It's very important that the schools are storm secured as well. They can also double as extra hurricane shelters if needed, and having a plan. That was the big thing, and communication.
With cars thrown about and buildings badly battered, the need to make Grand Bahama beautiful again was apparent, and that's just what the campaign that the minister started has championed.
The workers from these programs, this program comes from these communities, and so they feel so good they don't want to go home. They want to work on, they want to know what's the next project because it's theirs, and they can see the improvement. And so that's what Beautiful Grand Bahama is all about. It's all about impacting lives in a way where it's not just a short, 12-week program here that we got extended for another 12 weeks, but it's doing things that actually transforms lives.
Because of the Ministry of Grand Bahama, a lot of this beautification and cleanup in each community is getting the community looking lively again, because of the Ministry of Grand Bahama for the last 4 months now, they're doing a massive cleanup in all the communities, all the cemeteries. They're getting them back in shape and whatnot. So we got to give them a big, kudos to them, because they are now responsible for all these memorials being set up through the Ministry of Grand Bahamas, Ginger Moxie and her crew.
What does that do for the people's morale, to their spirits?
Oh man, let me tell you something. That's a big push. The people are so appreciative. You can just turn around. The people, this is Bishop Club. The people are so appreciative of what the Ministry of Grand Bahama is doing, because what is happening, they're killing two birds with one stone, because they are beautifying the communities, and at the same time they're putting some money into the economy, putting some money in the people's pocket. Because right in East End alone, we get about 60 people hired, and we're doing this from East End to West End. So altogether you're looking at hundreds of people that have been hired under the Ministry of Grand Bahama. I tell you, I supervise one of the jobs on the East End, and people are so appreciative, and living is helping so much. It is hard to say. They are really appreciative. I mean, it's a big push for the economy and for the people. And they tell me every day, man, if, they're so appreciative that they can pay some bills, they can, do some stuff.
We've been bringing back communities where we had where the Coconut Festival was normally held in Pelican Point. We restored that area, and they were able to have Coconut Festival during our independence period, and so it brought economic activity back to the community. They've been doing such a tremendous job, really, with identifying projects that some of the residents have talked about since Dorian.
And that economic activity is spreading from East Grand Bahama to West End.
Working really hard to make things happen in downtown Freeport. Actually, Solomon's food store is about to open pretty soon. They are already hiring. We are also bringing some of the government agencies downtown that'll bring additional life. We intend to have events downtown, and that is in line with the Ministry for Grand Bahama's vision for Grand Bahama to become an events and entertainment destination for the Bahamas. And so we've been working closely with the Ministry of Tourism, Investments in Aviation, to bring a lot of touristic products to Grand Bahama Island. Speaking to the cruise lines, we know there's a new Carnival cruise port coming, and there's other things happening. We're going to have a lot of visitors on the island, and so we need a lot of activity and events and entertainment to keep them, entertained and happy about the product that Grand Bahama offers.
As Abaco continues to rebound, more and more businesses are coming back on stream. There's new construction like the one behind me, as well as there are favorites for this community that's coming back on stream, like Wally's. Wally's has been in existence since 1986, and rebuilding after Dorian was a no-brainer. As the owners say, they are strong members of this community.
We're happy to be back, and we hope, we're thankful for all the support we've gotten so far. We love our community, and in the future, we look forward to doing more things with our community.
This was Wally's post-Hurricane Dorian. And this is the beloved restaurant and boutique resort today. Anna, who started at Wally's nearly 20 years ago as a busgirl, has worked her way up to manager in the family-oriented company. Her aunt worked for Wally's for nearly 30 years. She was the one to oversee all the renovations post-Hurricane Dorian.
3 months that we've been open, I think we've been missed. Because for the 3 months we've been pretty busy, not only with guests like foreigners, but even with our local market, because we tend to cater to local market as well as foreigners.
This year they were able to hire more people. And as the last original building on the strip, Anna says, come what may, Wally's is here to stay.
I'm not hopeful. I know we're gonna rebound. Hopeful means there's doubt. By no means I have any doubt.
The hardest part about experiencing a natural disaster is experiencing loss. And while the loss of property was astronomical, the loss of life is what shook this nation to its core.
As I was leaving, I was one of the last one to leave the community of McLeanstown. And as I was leaving and passing through the corner, my nephew was up on the roof. PJ Jr., Philip Thomas Jr. I said, nephew, let's go, man, let's go. This is going to be a bad storm. He said, I can be all right, Uncle man, Mom, we can tough it out up here. And he lose all his kids, and a grandson, and a stepson, and almost lose his wife. So he lose, I think it was about 4 or 5 of them out of his family that perished during Dorian. And it was sad. Even his wife today, she's still going through a lot. But she is bouncing back, and the community is bouncing back. But that was tragedy, man.
Okay, so where are we going now?
Okay, where we're heading right now is to the area, slow right down here, where most people believe the most of the people who died lose their life. Going straight. Okay. Most of the people who lose their life, right on this little, you can put it on the side of the road, that little makeshift road here. 17 people lose their life in this community alone. This is High Rock. Yeah, 17 persons. And we should never forget that as a people, because that's a lot of people to lose out of one community. So we got to remember these folks.
The entire Bahamas stands in unity to honor and remember the lives lost on the 2 most northern islands. It's been a long 3 years, from rebuilding homes to reshaping lives. But one thing's for sure,
Abaconians and Grand Bahamians have displayed a great resiliency, tenacity, and of course a courage to rebuild.